Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I'm so excited because today I have the one and only Dethra Giles. And let me tell you a little bit about her. She's an internationally recognized leadership strategist, a TED speaker, and executive coach who helps high-performing women lead with clarity, confidence, and authority. With over 2 decades of experience working with Fortune 500 organizations and top professionals, she specializes in emotional intelligence, communication, and power dynamics. Today, she's joining us to explore how successful women can apply those same leadership principles to their relationships and approach to love. Welcome.
I'm so excited. I'm so
Yeah.
excited.
Is there anything else you want to share about yourself? I want to brag on yourself.
Oh, yeah. So I am an author. I published a book in August. Shameless plug. I always like to put it out there. It's called That's Not What I Said. Master Conflict with Conversational Competence, and bragging on it, it just hit the top 3% on Amazon. Yeah,
Awesome. Okay.
top 3% of all books, not just in my category, but of all books on Amazon.
Of all books, that is
Yes.
that is phenomenal. Like standing ovation, but we're not going to stand it. But
I know,
it's
right?
so amazing. I'm here talking to a bestseller.
Yes, I know. Who
Amazon
knew?
bestseller. Let's just add that to the
Yes.
title.
It's the bestseller. So it was a shock because that's not why I wrote the book. I wrote the book to actually be helpful to people. But the fact that people are engaging with it and buying it and reading it and using it, it doesn't get better.
But isn't that amazing too? Because when we are mission driven, it's going to have a ripple effect.
Absolutely. That's what I tell people. People ask, how did you get to where you are? How have you achieved this level of success? And what's funny for me, as we talked a little bit earlier, I don't think I've even realized that I have achieved a certain level of success. I just went about doing what I was created to do and what I know I did well and what I knew I was uniquely designed to solve in the world, and everything else just formed around it.
Nice. What do you think you were uniquely designed to solve?
You know what's funny is I think I was uniquely designed to fix the way people think so it could impact their lives. Like when I in undergrad, I thought I was going to college to be a neurosurgeon. I want to be a neurosurgeon.
Mm.
And I realized I had the calling right. I just had the profession wrong. I was always meant to fix what was in people's heads so that they live differently. I just thought I was supposed to do it through surgery and not through conversations and tools and techniques and strategies.
I love it. You are a brain surgeon of sorts.
Yes,
Without
exactly.
anesthesia, and I love that because, I with me having, I'm in the medical field. When you're a surgeon, and I thought about being a surgeon myself too, but I can realize you could only impact one person at a time in that operating
Exactly.
room.
Exactly. And with this, I like a couple days ago, I was in Las Vegas speaking at an AMGA conference, which is American Medical something something. But basically, it's the people that the administration for hospitals. So these are CEOs of hospitals, also doctors and surgeons and things like that. But I'm talking to these people who are going to go back to their hospitals, and the people that they lead will impact every patient that comes through that hospital. And I couldn't have done that if I was just a surgeon.
Isn't
Not
that
just because
amazing?
it's not like a just like, oh, you're just a surgeon, but I would have impacted one patient at a time versus talking directly to the CEO of a healthcare system. That's different.
Absolutely, absolutely. To be in a place and space where you're not only impacting one person, but literally a domino effect, like the top of the Christmas tree all the way down. That's profound.
Yeah. And for me, I think the biggest thing for me is that I don't just impact the workplace, is that these people leave that conference and they do this stuff in real life. They take it back to their kids and to their partners. Like even in the book, people thought when I wrote the book, it's just going to be about business. I said, no, I talk about everything from how to ask your boss for a raise to how to address the family predator at Thanksgiving. Like we are talking about all of the hard conversations that we avoid and don't know how to have, but are life changing for us.
Oh my gosh, I can take this in so many different directions. So since a lot of your work is embodied in the book, let's go into it a bit then. So how do we have these hard conversations? Let's start there.
Well, you know, I think I always back up first, and as a doctor, you'll appreciate this. I always back up first to the biology around why these conversations are hard, right? And to oversimplify it, so anyone out there listening, if you are a neuroscientist, do not at me because I know I am oversimplifying this, but I'm saying it this way for for it to be palatable for everyone. But we know when people say, I was so mad I couldn't think, that's almost literal because that prefrontal cortex, when you get to a certain level of arousal, that prefrontal cortex is like, this is not my battle. But the
Right.
problem is that's where the good thinking happens. That's where all the good processing, innovation, all that good stuff happens. And so we have to realize that what goes on in our minds when something like that goes on is it says, hey, I'm checking out. And we go back to our limbic system. Well, what's stored in our limbic system? Your mama. You know, so I'm in an argument and I'm trying to think of something bright and smart and savvy to say, and all I could come out with is your mama. And I'm ready to throw hands because the thinking part of my brain shut down. And so when we understand that, then we understand, okay, there's nothing we can do to stop that from happening. But what we can do is store something in our limbic system that's more helpful. So when
Mm.
this part stopped thinking, what do I have stored? I always use the analogy of Steph Curry. Steph Curry in the end of the final four game when they are down by 2 points, he does not have to think about making a 3-point shot because that shot is stored back there in instinct. So what's stored? And for that, I give people what I created a long time ago was my DARE model: describe, acknowledge, review, and engage. When you are in a tough conversation and you need to use conversational competence, but your thinking part shut down, you describe versus interpret. You acknowledge similarities without minimizing differences. You review the narrative you've accepted as fact, and you engage for conversation, not conversion.
Oh, I love that. Oh my gosh. The psychologist in me is like, this is amazing. Okay, so let's take it away from, those heavy serious conversations. And now let's take it into, our everyday relationships, our platonic relationships, and now our romantic. Because as you know, this platform is mostly for professional single women. So they're
Yeah.
they're professional. They're in the workplace. Yes, they're working to get their promotion. They're trying to say no to a project eloquently because they've been burdened with it without increase in pay. They're also thinking about dating and struggling on how to get past the first date into the next one and what to talk about. So I know I threw a lot of it out there, but tell me, what are some strategies that women can use in the setting of friendships and building friendships that could become romantic relationships?
You know what I find, and so I say this, people say, Deidre, you're an expert. And I'm like, I'm not an expert, I just have my experience. This May 5th, I'll be married for 25 years. Yes.
Congratulations!
Thank you. We've been together for about 28, 29 years, and we've been married come in about a month or so for about 25 years. So I will say I have enough experience to speak about this. But what I find with a lot of my single friends, especially my single clients, the ones that I'm coaching that are high-powered professionals, is that women aren't honest about what they really want and not honest with themselves about what they really want for fear of rejection, for fear that someone is going to not like that idea and that will put them in a situation where they're by themselves. And
Mm,
one example, I was recently working with a client and she was having trouble dating. And we kind of went through and I tell people I am not a dating coach. I am not a life coach. I'm a cubicle to the corner office queen. I am a strategist. I am a CEO. However, your life impacts everything. So I have to know what's going on because I need to know why this is happening over here. It's because life is jacked up, right?
I love this. Oh my gosh, this is so good.
And so I asked, okay, let's run down what happened with your last few relationships because this is a gorgeous woman, high power, everything. And what we narrowed it down to is that she wasn't willing to be honest with herself about how much money she wanted her partner to make. And so she wasn't honest with herself. So she didn't acknowledge it, which means she went after people who did not have that level of income. And then it later became a problem. And it felt she made it a, okay, you don't like to do these things type of problem versus you really can't afford to do the things that I enjoy doing. And I was like, why aren't you being honest? Because what if I give that as a number and men reject me because of it? And I said, the funny thing about that is you'll end up right where you already are versus being honest and having that as a part of what you are looking for and going after and not wasting your time in places where it's not. Now, I'm not saying I agree or disagree. I'm saying this is your life, not mine. And if that's your requirement, and I've seen other people be, I don't want to deal with someone that has children. Cool. Well, stop lying to yourself about that and making it about someone else when you end up dating someone that has children. Oh, they never have time for me. It's not really about time. It's about the fact that you don't want to date someone that has children. And so I think one of the biggest things is being honest with ourselves about what we truly want.
Yeah, and I want to expound on that a bit. That fear of rejection, that fear of loneliness. Like you said, in some cases you end up right where you were, but at least you have a sense of I have my own back.
Yes.
I have my own back. I'm my best friend, and it's something I speak about a lot. Is our women's intuition. Also use gut feeling, Holy Spirit. Many times over the years, we've been trained to ignore it, to suppress it, especially us melanated women. Um, so when you have that background going on as well, you need to feel safe in your own skin. You need to feel like my voice matters. And therefore, when I go into conversations, I'm more clear about what I said. So I don't have to be like the title of the book, that's not what I said. I'm very clear because I'm clear of myself and there's no dissonance anymore.
You know what's funny when you say that? I remember, so I have two children. I have a daughter who's 21, she'll be 22 in July, and I have a son who's 18 and on his way off to college. She's in college now. And I remember when they were younger, I used to get so much flack from my family because I would not make them hug anyone, especially her. My son was pretty much cool on his own, saying, I don't want to hug you. My mom said, I ain't got to. But I especially her because I said, and when I was in college, I was an RA and RD, had to do investigations and things like that. And I saw so many women who had not been taught to trust that thing. And because of that, they ended up in situations that they would always say the same thing. I just knew it. I just knew something was going to happen. And I should have listened to myself. And they would beat themselves up for not listening to themselves. And I swore that at a young age, I would teach my children to listen to that thing. And so if they walked in the room and didn't want to hug somebody, I don't care why you don't want to hug them. Something in you said don't hug them, you don't have to hug them. And so I wanted them to learn early that they had body autonomy, but
Hmm.
also that there was something in them that would give them a warning signal and they should listen to it.
So good, so good. So you're working with women, and I love how you phrase it, to go from the cubicle to the corner office. And yet you delve into these other parts of their lives. The ones who are successful in the corporate setting, how are their personal relationships?
You know what? It varies, right? So I have I would say I have two camps. I have a camp of people who are the boss. I run stuff and I run stuff in every area of my life, and I have happened to align with people that absolutely love that. They want me to run things. They let me run shop. They fall in line. And those are the people I've surrounded myself with. And then I have the other side who are like, I run things over here and I have no desire to do that when I leave. In both of those camps, the people have been clear about what they want and they've only kept people around them that fall into that category. Now, they're not obstinate, like I'm not flexible at all. I tell my clients we have walls and then we have boundaries. Walls are those immovable things. They are not flexible and we understand why we have them. For me, I tell my wall is family is first. My example is families first for me.
Hmm.
My boundary is I don't take work calls after 6 o'clock. Now, that boundary can be movable in support of my wall. If it needs to expand in support of my wall, hey, you know what? The family's first. We are planning a major trip in January. If I move this boundary, I can make a little bit of extra money to pay for that trip. Okay, the boundary's movable. Call me at 7 o'clock because we're working on this project. But if I find out my kid needs to go to therapy at 5, that wall contracts. Don't call me at 5 o'clock, right? And so we
Mm-hmm.
have our walls and we have our boundaries. And I make sure my clients know exactly what the wall, that immovable thing is, and the boundaries and where the flexibility lies with the boundaries.
Would you say for both of those women, a similar trait is that they feel safe to have their voice,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
right?
The women and that's I think that's across the board. When people have healthy personal lives, they do feel safe. And part of that safety is a comfort and an understanding on both sides. I understand who you are, you understand who I am, and you're accepting of it. It doesn't mean I don't have to adjust where I have deficiencies. It just means you accept my deficiencies and you're going to work with me through it. I
I
tell
love
people all the time that people ask me, what's the secret to being married this long? And I tell them, I don't know the secret, but I know what worked for me. And it was knowing that the person I married was not going to be the person I was married to, and being willing to make the adjustments all along the way.
You hit the nail right on the head. I'm not 25 years in. We're 11 in together, 10 years next year. But the same conclusion. Like I feel like I've married different versions of I am have been married to different versions of him, and he has definitely
Oh
been married to different versions of
oh
me.
my gosh. It's funny because we laugh because when we met in college, undergrad, we were trying to pull money together to buy a pizza. You know, now we're talking about, well, you know what? Paris may be a good trip. Let's go to Italy. And while we're in Italy, let's go to where pizza start. Like that, we're totally different people. The person, I remember one time we were shopping. This was like shortly after we got married. I went to see this dress and I thought this dress was the most gorgeous dress I'd ever seen. And I remember to this day because I wanted it so badly. That dress was like maybe $200. And I was like, oh my gosh, one day. I'll be able to just go in there and afford this dress. Now, I'm like, I would just be like, girl, put that in the bag. I don't even know if I really want it or not, but it's cute. I decide when I get home if I'm gonna keep it.
Right.
Right? Totally different versions of myself. And I was single, never even desired to have kids. Now I'm a mom of two adult children, totally different people.
Yeah. How has not to get too much in your but how has your husband changed in very general ways?
Oh, it's what's funny is my husband grew up he grew up in a very healthy environment. Mine was not so much, but father, preacher, mother, all that stuff. They've been married forever and ever, but they didn't really take nice trips. And so when we would take a trip, my husband thought I was just being reckless with money. We don't need to stay in this kind of hotel. We don't need to fly like this. We don't need to be at this kind of resort. Now, if I'm skimping, he's like, "Well, why are we staying here?" Sir, you are the one, and you know how they are. He complains like, we didn't need to spend this much money, but let me not spend this much money. He got questions like, so what happened? Are we doing okay financially? Something's wrong? Why are we here?
That is so
Totally different person.
so funny. I remember convincing my husband to get global entry. He's like, "What? Why are we spending?" And then when we get off the plane, he's like, "Oh, look, we're skipping all these people."
Look at all the people over there in line. That's my
He's
husband.
like,
I don't need TSA pre-check. Okay, well, take off your shoes then.
"Right." And then when we were in group one, he's like, "Oh, we get to just show up anytime. Yeah, they're on group six, but we can just we're in priority."
He's like one day we were flying and he decided the last minute to book his flight, so he wasn't on my itinerary, which means he didn't get the upgrades I normally get. So he said,
Hmm.
what happened? I said, well, you waited the last minute. You're not on my itinerary. Well, attach it. I said, well, you're the one always talking about it's fine to sit here. Why is there a problem now? So that was never him when we first started dating. Never him. And now he's looking around like, well, I'm just gonna be sitting back here. Yeah, it's fine. We all going to the same place. Isn't that what you always say?
That's too funny. To send me a text message back there. But over 25 years of marriage, over 25 years together, okay, and about to be 25 years in a few weeks, in like 2 or 3 weeks. You said the 5th, right?
Yeah, May 5th.
It's actually my husband's birthday, so
Cinco de
30.
Mayo.
Yeah, awesome. What a be Cinco de Mayo, Cinco de Love, de Amor. Um, so over the years, professionally and personally, you have learned how to navigate communication because you're not going to see eye to eye. As we've shared, jokingly, just using the example of the growth in finance and mindset, how we've changed as people. I would imagine there have been many times or experiences and your growth together as a couple and individually where you did not see eye to eye, where the limbic system kicked in, right? How did you pull back in those instances? And at that time, did you have the framework you have now?
You know what's funny is my husband is actually one of the reasons that I dove into this research. So early on, we were dating in undergrad. We got into our first argument. Now, I told you he grew up in this calm, quiet, he born in Savannah, Georgia family, and they speak when someone talks, the other person stops and they don't talk over each other, all that good stuff. I grew up in an environment where we were verbal warriors. Baby, we were argument Olympians, and we could use our words, we could use our elevation of voices, we could slice and dice, and I was a gold medalist. And so the very first argument we had, I raised my voice, and my husband, boyfriend at the time, looked at me like I was crazy. And he said, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Is he we are arguing?" And he was like, "Oh no, not like that. We don't talk to each other like that." What
Mm,
was to this day, I remember that situation like it was yesterday. I don't remember what we were arguing about, but I remember leaning in and saying, "Tell me more. How do we argue without all of this?" Because I knew how to do it, but I always knew I didn't like it. I did not like having my feelings hurt or hurting other people's feelings. I didn't like the months of apology after a bad argument. I never liked it. That was how I was taught and what I learned.
mm.
And so when he said, "We don't do this," and I was like, "Well, let's be clear. I'm going to say what needs to be said. So your task now is to teach me how to do that the way you do it because I'm going to say it." And I realized he didn't know how to teach it. He just knew it existed. And so from there, I went on a task to learn it, to learn how to teach it to other people like me. And so I've had this model for a while. It took me a while to synthesize it down to those succinct processes, but I've always been on this journey of learning how to argue differently because I was always the person that was going to say it. I just had to learn how to say it in a way that did not flip the tables over and burn the building down.
And I can relate 1,000%. I used to use the words go for blood. You know, I was like, that's how it was. Not that my parents did it, ironically. My parents did not argue now, but my siblings and I, we were pretty razor sharp. And it definitely and then there's something about being in a relationship that creates the mirror, right? So you had a mirror brought in front of you
Yeah.
to say there's a different way that exists and then to approach it in that different way. Um, so
But
I
see,
love that.
my mom was the silent but deadly. Like this was my whole family was like this, but my mom and my entire family, my mom is the one. My mom could give you the silent treatment for weeks and think nothing of it. She could go silent and give you what you needed, but not say a single word to you. And I was like, that's just as bad as
Ouch,
someone,
yeah.
yeah, as someone who will slice and dice you with their words. And so I didn't learn functional. And he did, but I was like, Shh, you got to teach me that because that is not my natural bend.
Yeah, and being able to be open enough to hear that because you were like, okay, you could have easily been like, well, there's so many other guys here, let's keep it moving, right? Especially in undergrad, the numbers, the statistics of you is so much easier to kind of move on compared to women dating in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. But the strengths and the takeaways, and I hope the listeners pick up on is was You noticed there was something different. You decided to put your ego aside for a bit to learn and to think of the bigger picture. And the bigger picture was to work out this relationship, right?
And I think and to add to that was the desire. I I knew there was something in me that always said, I don't like this. I just don't know another way. If someone had told me decades before that, like, oh, you can disagree with someone and you all can work that out without calling anyone out of their names, I would have said at the same time, tell me more. I knew I didn't like it. And so when someone introduced the idea that there was something else possible, I don't know if I'm going to be with you or not, but I like this idea. So tell me, in case we don't end up together, I could take this in my next relationship because I don't want to do this anymore.
I love that. And this goes back to the thing of listening to that intuition.
Hmm.
Something in you said there's that you wanted different and you listen to that versus suppressing that. And I think that's important because like I said, for those who are, either dating for the first time seriously in their next like 30s and up, or coming out of a divorce and they're trying to, there's a lot of behaviors that have to be unlearned in order to make room for the next thing. And not only, I always emphasize, it's not just about getting couples together, so also building a foundation for a lasting relationship. And this is foundational.
Yeah. And I think that foundation piece is so critical. And I think for me, that was one of the reasons I was able to be with my husband and stay with him the way, because I came into the relationship. When I met my husband, I said, I am never getting married and never having children. I hope you're okay with that. And he said, oh, I came to college to find my wife. And I said, that is unfortunate. Let me help you find her because it is not me. What that did though is I came into the relationship without any pretense. I didn't come into the relationship with the idea of I need to do something to do or be something to convince you that I'm the one. I came in like, this is who I am. Is that okay with you? Because if it's not, we can all just move on. And it made this foundation of honesty a solid foundation for us because neither of us ever had to pretend to be something to get to a certain goal.
Yeah, and I think even before that, and I don't know if you remember or thought about consciously, you were honest with yourself and you had no pretense with yourself. So therefore, once you got into it, and I say that because I know for me, I did have a college boyfriend, and different, but if I had to do it again, it's more like how my now husband, where I had to do a lot of self coaching, a lot of maturity, a lot of listening to my intuition, a lot of being sure, so that when I got into that relationship, I was like, I have nothing to hide. Here are the biggest potential. I told him up front, I don't share them publicly because it's not everyone's business, but I shared with him the things that I knew were going to be the most crucial things. I was like, these are the top three things. And I have nothing to hide after that. Like, you cool?
Yeah.
And interestingly, also, when we got together, I didn't want kids. Even though my whole life I said, I was like, you cool with that? He's like, yeah. And then over time, I was like, you know what? I think I have room in my heart for kids now. So it's so funny we both had that. But yeah, but the precursor to to that nothing to hide is being assured of yourself, being so in yourself, and also surrounding yourself, like you said, is a little different, but surrounding yourself with people who also are sure of themselves.
Absolutely. Because, and I see this a lot in my single clients and single friends. They don't understand that confident people who are surrounded by insecure people will become insecure because they will begin to make you question your confidence, and or it turns into a very contentious relationship because there's always something that you are doing that is an affront to who they are. Like you said, people don't want the mirror. If I was not open to a different way, that mirror would have caused more problems that my husband put in front of me and said, hey, look at how you're doing this. Is that okay? It would have been more problems than solutions. But I was in a position where I could take the mirror and say, I don't like the way that looks. And so
Hmm.
when you are that confident and you have it together, being surrounded by people who are insecure, it's a recipe for disaster.
1,000%. I usually tell folks like you have to audit your friend circle. If you're looking to date differently, to date with purpose, there's some people around you who are frenemies. They're not really for you. So really being keeping that in mind. Now you mentioned your husband growing up as a PK, right? Pastor's kid in a ministerial home. What role did faith and spirituality have in building your relationship together?
You know what? It was a lot, but at the time, I don't think either of us actually knew it. There were things I love it when the Bible says, train up a child in the way they should go, and when they're old, they will not depart from it.
Hmm.
Because there are certain things that are put in you that manifest, and you don't even know it's manifesting. You don't know it's showing up. You don't know that it's a part of your thought process. It was just put in you so young and so intentionally that it's a part of your way of being. So there were things that though I said one thing, my husband had been taught from an early age to look for certain things in a woman, and I exemplified those things. Again, I didn't wasn't intentionally exemplifying those things, but they had also been put in me early on, right? The same is true for what I was looking for in a man. Like I knew I wanted someone that could lead our household, but I'm like, I'm a leader. I don't need anybody to lead me, but there were certain characteristics he had. We were college students. We were both broke, but I saw how he was intentional. I saw how when I called and said, hey, my car broke down, he was like, well, where are you?
Mm.
Oh, I'm such and such, but I'm just calling to talk while AAA is on the way. There's nothing I need you to do. And it's like, what do you mean? I'm on my way. Little things like that that I was like, oh, okay. My man, my man, my man, my man. Like,
Yes.
so it was those little things that it wasn't that I was intentional about looking for them, but I recognized what they were when they showed up. So I was able to go from I never want to be married and having kids to, oh, you've demonstrated some things that are green flags for me. And because it's been instilled in me so early on, I know they're green flags. Today, I know that was because of how we were both raised in the church and with faith, and my husband is also a Bible scholar, so he's a person that reads the Bible, knows his stuff, goes through it and out, and he was that way younger too. So there were certain things that were just in there that we didn't recognize they were coming out and how we were making judgments.
Oh my gosh. First of all, amen that he's a Bible scholar. Um, oh my goodness, where do I take this? Okay, so one thing, so here, this is going to be an interesting twist on what you just said because you spoke to how you both had things instilled in you as children that helped nurture your relationship. What are things that women can do who did not have those things or had the opposite? And the reason I ask this question, and this ties into communication as well, is because many times when women or men think about relationships, they don't realize they've been absorbing television and media and a lot of romanticized versions, which are 30-minute clip, a 2-hour clip. That's not real life. So they enter relationships thinking it's going to be a certain way, and it doesn't meet that, right? So, how do we then recognize some of the things we might have picked up, which are counterintuitive to having a great relationship and great communication?
So one of the things a mentor told me a long time ago, and I've seen it in other places, they said, never take advice from someone you don't want to trade places with.
Mm.
And I think we don't recognize that. It's funny. I think we talked about this before, how people will tell my husband now, oh, you all should have a podcast. You all should have a show and blah, 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 yakety schmackety. I'm like, no, we shouldn't, because y'all wouldn't watch it. You would not. What's exciting about, oh, he came home? That's not exciting. You watching the podcast, I mean, you watching the reality show and you wait for me to blow up because he was out all night and didn't call me and the TV pans and at 5 o'clock he's coming through the door. That is not exciting. And so we are entertained by things that are counter to the things we want. What we don't realize is that entertainment seeps in.
Hmm.
Seeps in. And so it gives us this idea that real love is what struggle love. And y'all ain't really been in love unless y'all had a fight about some side chick. I beg your finest pardon. That is that is not my definition. And so we have to realize what is feeding us. And so when we realize that, I think it opens up our minds to why we're thinking the way we're thinking, why we're in situations that we're in. because like I said, that was my actions were unintentional about what was put in me. If we're allowing these things to come into us, again, those actions will be unintentionally about what was put in you. And so when we recognize that, to stop and say, wait a minute, how do I actually want to be behaving? What results do I want? Who exemplifies those things? And let me do some research to find out how they're moving. It's the same thing we do in our corporate lives, but we think somehow it's different in the personal life. Or in the corporate, we say, oh, Ken Chenault, my idol, let me study how his career moved. We don't go on the other side and say, hey, this marriage, I love that. Let me study how they moved. It's like they're two separate things and they're actually the same.
You know what? I love that segue because one thing I talk about in the actual coaching, so this is a freebie for those who may not do my actual program. I tell them to approach dating like they're applying to a job.
Absolutely.
You have to have strategy. You have to have clarity about where you're going. You're not desperate because desperate will repel and it's the wrong energy, but you're moving in purpose. So as you're going through the online apps, as you're going through meeting people in person, you're like, okay, this is what I'm looking for. Do they exemplify that? Do they have a growth mindset to at least get there? Right? Because like we said, people evolve. And if not, close that file, keep it moving. We apply to more than one job at a time. Sometimes I say date more than one person at a time and then see which one gives the offer, right? So we need to see those synergies between those two worlds because they affect each other.
Absolutely. And I love, and you know what drives me crazy is in today's world, we have equated dating with sexual activity. And I'm like, you all, when I say date multiple people, I'm not saying go out and sleep with the whole football team. What I'm saying is entertain options until one option identifies itself as the priority. Like, why would, oh, I'm only going to, no, I don't have sex with everybody. No one is saying that, but
Right.
entertain options.
Right, right. And I love how you say that as well too, because like we said, back to the corporate analogy, we don't when we're looking for jobs, we don't apply to just one job and wait for them. And nowadays, even for me as a physician, I do contract work. Nowadays, they may take months to get back to you.
What? And my background
Months.
is HR, so you know I know. I've actually recruited for some positions, especially high. Now here's the deal. Same analogy. The best positions, the higher level positions, the positions that pay the most, their turnaround time can be 3 to 6 months. Because we're talking about, I need to go through a true national search. We would do national searches, like say if I'm hiring the president for a university, we're doing a national search, sometimes international search, and we're about to pick somebody that's going to manage hundreds of millions of dollars. Do you think I'm making that selection overnight? You think
Mm,
I'm going to pick one person? Oh, no, 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 no. We are going through a bunch of people. We're going through all the credentials and we're going to invest in getting the best candidate. Invest time, invest money, invest resources in getting the best candidate because this candidate is going to manage this entire organization. The biggest opportunity to ruin your life is your life partner.
mm.
And we take that decision so cavalierly. Oh, I'm just gonna get a guy who's cute, who does whatever, got a little bit of money, and now we're gonna get married. What? The biggest opportunity to ruin your life is your life partner.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then on the flip side, the biggest way to elevate
Absolutely.
the
Even I look at my life, if it were not, I had a great job. I was head of HR at Emory University's Oxford College. I was doing great. There was absolutely no reason other than God's calling on my life to leave that amazing job, because me and God still have this conversation to this day, to leave that amazing job and start a business. I went to my husband and said, hey, I'm leaving Emory and I'm going to start a consulting firm. This was 2007. And he was like, okay. That was, and I told you my job title, so you know there was a huge chunk of salary leaving our household
hmm
with no real clients to replace that salary. Listen to me, people, there were no clients to replace that salary. I had salary, I carried our benefits. If I had stayed there, our children could have gone to college at a private university, all the way up to their graduate programs that would be law school, medical school, whatever, for free.
Hmm.
And I said, I am leaving all of that to go start this thing that I have no evidence I will be able to get off the ground. And he said, okay. And now my company is an international consulting firm. I am working with clients like Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy and the NBA. I'm speaking around the world at conferences like the AMGA or did was the host for a national award ceremony in South Africa because of the work I do. That was all because my life partner was like, I got you. Let's do this. So it can be your biggest come up or it can be your biggest downfall.
Oh man. Oh, we could just pass the collection plate off of that. Oh my gosh, that is fantastic. That is fantastic. I feel like we have some parallels. Like for me, that was in 17. I left an academic job. We weren't even married, no kids. But the plan was to stay in that job until I retired.
Mhm.
Was the plan. Like the tuition, the whole bit, all of that. And I was like, I'm gonna go out and travel as a doc. And he's like, all right. Oh my gosh, so really. But um so let's go back to no, we talked about the DARE framework. What other frameworks would you like to share with the audience?
Oh, you know what? One of my frameworks that I absolutely love, my DARE framework and my MIND framework are probably my two most favorite frameworks. My MIND framework is the framework I help people with for career advancement. And the way I came up with this framework was I was visiting South Africa. And I was there with a friend of mine who lived there. And I don't know if people actually know this. We say it cavalierly in the US, but I don't know if people know the reality of it. But there
Hmm.
are people on the continent who literally have diamonds in their backyard. Like literally have diamonds in their backyard. But here's the gotcha. They cannot mine those diamonds because of regulations. So he has diamonds in his backyard that he can't do anything with because of mining regulations.
Wow.
And I'm like, so you're sitting on, like, I saw one in his backyard that was just, I was like, if I could figure out how to get that thing in my bag. And he was like, yes, and you will quickly go to prison. But he's sitting on easily millions of dollars in his backyard and can't do anything with it. And what I said when I developed it, I said, in my head, I said, I realize that if you don't mine your own diamonds, someone else will mine them for you. And they will regulate you out of the ability to mind them yourself. And so, what I tell all of my clients is you are a multi-million dollar organization and your career is your product. And so, mine for me is how I teach them to mind their own diamonds. It stands for manage like a CEO, invest like a venture capitalist, network like a socialite, execute like a surgeon, and explore like an archaeologist. So, manage, invest, network, execute, and explore is my tools for helping people navigate their careers like the CEOs that they are.
This is delicious. I'm definitely gonna get your book. I need to die. I'm in my book season right now. I already had 4 books, 4 or 5 books come to the house. I have definitely a lot more to cover in Q2. Ladies and gentlemen who follow the channel, the one and only Dethra Giles. Dethra, tell everyone how can they find you? How,
Absolutely. On Instagram, I am Dethra underscore Giles. That is Dethra underscore Giles. All of my employeepreneurs, because I tell people you should manage your career like a business. So that means you are an employeepreneur. You need to be following me on LinkedIn, where I am Dethra Giles. Again, that's Dethra Giles. And you can find my book on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, or even on my website, DetraGiles.com. Anywhere you get your books, the book is available.
and that's not what I said.
That's not what I said.
Mm, I love it. Oh my gosh. If I ever do a live panel, you have to be there.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Oh, this
Anytime.
was so good. So good. Thank you again. Thank you again.